Would you recognize the Reno Rocket? This is Greg LeMond, America's greatest cyclist, in 1979, when he won his first of 3 Nevada City, California criteriums. And this is a decade later, LeMond's stunning come-from-behind Tour de France victory, his second of 3. Now, will this year's Nevada City race, the first of 3 in the Subaru Cycling Classic, showcase another cycling star of the future? LeMond has blazed the way. Who will follow? Today, top professional and amateur cyclists compete in the Subaru Cycling Classic amid the scenic splendor of northwestern South Carolina. Welcome to beautiful Greenville, South Carolina, where the old and new South stand side by side and where old and new cycling rivalries will be renewed in this third and final stop of the Subaru Cycling Classic. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Lewis, along with Tim Blumenthal, the racing editor for Bicycling Magazine. You know, Tim, some people say that this series provides cycling with its own version of a great football rivalry, the Giants versus the Redskins. You think that's a fair characterization?
Sure, but in cycling, it's Subaru Montgomery versus Coors Light. These two teams have been going at it all season, several times each week. And in fact, the rivalries began for many of them when they were kids. They've been racing bikes for a long time. The format is criterium racing. Shoulder to shoulder, head to head, high speed, not particularly a long race in time, but intense. And that's why 25,000 people are gathered here along the ropes. They're hoping for a lot of action.
Well, action's what they've been getting ever since this series began back in Nevada City, California. It's an old gold rush town with a new rush for glory in criterium racing, the 31st annual Subaru Tour of Nevada City Classic. 1.14 miles per lap, 400 feet of vertical, so over 40 laps, 16,000 feet of climbing. The race is off and the pace is fast.
This city is built on 7 hills, and that's what makes this criterium special. Extremely tough, a race of less than 2 hours, but with all the challenge that you might find in an alpine stage of the Tour de France.
And a fortress of hay bales tells you there is danger lurking at every turn. Fast pace, lots of riders, precision riding required as Chris Huber takes the early lead for Coors Light and followed by several of his teammates.
If there's one salvation for these racers today, Greg, it's the weather. Typically very, very hot. Today in the mid-80s, not too bad on the humidity side. They'll be able to survive.
Let's talk a little bit about the strategy in this race.
Well, primarily, it's the Coors Light team against Subaru Montgomery. The field is 130 strong, so many teams are represented. But these two are the strongest professional teams in American cycling. They've been battling all year, and this is a prestige confrontation.
Setting the pace now, though, riding for Ritchie is Tim Rutherford, and it's Jim Copeland of Subaru, the 1990 national champion in criterium racing, right behind him.
And you can see, Greg, what this course does. It's very unusual in a criterium to see racers falling off the pace so early. Nevada City always does that.
A town of 2,500 people, 12,000 have come out, and they have got their first breakaway. This is Steve Haig of Subaru Montgomery, and it is Steven Swart of Coors Light right behind.
The lead isn't much, Greg, but these two represent the two strongest teams in this race. So what's going to happen is behind, their teammates will work to slow the pace, allowing these two to build a lead. Both of the two strong teams are satisfied with the race as it's flowing right now.
Haig, a gold medalist in 1984 Olympics, a pursuit rider, best known for his work on the track, has had some brilliant performances on the road as well. And out of these two, he would actually have more speed.
Well, Swart is not one of the better-known racers on Coors Light. He's been on the team 3 years. He usually plays a supporting role. This is a big personal opportunity for glory. He's very strong in a race like this.
Steve Haig from Dana Point, California. Steven Swart is from Auckland, New Zealand.
The lead now, 8 seconds. Not a concern for anyone behind the leaders.
And racing continues in this first of 3 events in the Subaru Cycling. The word Nevada means snow-covered mountains, though not this time of year. The mountains around Nevada City now don't attract a bonanza of skiers, but cyclists. Like these out for a leisurely ride on the roads around town, not competing, just enjoying. But almost a century and a half ago, it was miners, the 49ers, who rolled into town. The definition of swift has changed in the last 100 years. The antique bike weighed about 50 pounds and could go almost 20 miles per hour. The modern-day bike weighs less than 20 pounds and can go 50 miles per hour. But back on the Nevada City Criterium course, this $3,000 machine is averaging about 27 miles per hour.
And now there are two new leaders, but as expected, they represent the same two teams. That's Scott Moninger of Coors Light in the front, followed by Lance Armstrong of Subaru Montgomery. And Armstrong, he's a power, perhaps our best hope for an Olympic medal in Barcelona next year.
The field about 12 seconds behind, and it's a field that's grown much smaller. The race began with 150 riders, and they are dropping off at every lap. It is not because of the heat, but because of the hills and the pace. But Lance Armstrong and Scott Moninger, too, who will not drop off or slow down, particularly Armstrong. He is known as a tireless, fierce competitor, a young one.
And he's a triathlete. He came to the sport of cycling just a couple years ago. He's fearless. He knows no bounds. He's gone up against professionals in Europe with great success. This is a good move for Subaru Montgomery.
This is Scott Moninger, a first-year pro, riding with Coors Light. 1990 U.S. national team member.
Moninger is a great climber. He is well suited to this course. He could be a match for Armstrong.
So it's still Armstrong and Moninger out in front, but difficult to get away.
But still, you can see Armstrong always forcing the pace. That's his style. He's never satisfied with the lead, never satisfied unless everyone else in the race is destroyed.
Didn't start competing in cycling events exclusively until he was 17 years old. As you mentioned before that, a triathlete. Wanted to compete in Olympic triathlon, but when he found out it would be many years before it was added to the Olympic calendar, he decided, okay, I'll go straight to cycling. Plans to turn pro after Barcelona.
And there's the field. You can see how much smaller it is, maybe 1/3 the original 130 starters. That's Eddie Borisevich. He's the coach of Lance Armstrong. He was the 1984 Olympic team coach. He's known as a master of tactics. He's produced the best success for U.S. cycling ever.
Produced 9 Olympic medals in '84 in L.A. with the U.S. cycling team.
And now out in front, Armstrong is chasing another Coors Light rider. It's Chris Huber. He's replaced Moninger in the breakaway. Armstrong, he's 19 years old, and they call him the next Greg LeMond. And that's not a phrase that's thrown around too lightly. He truly is a hope for the future.
Lance Armstrong believes in himself. He says, I've got the potential. He's also got the power. He's a better climber than Huber. Huber's a better sprinter. Their battle concludes when we return. Welcome back to Nevada City, California. Greg Lewis along with Tim Blumenthal. The 31st edition of the Subaru Tour of Nevada City Classic.
2 laps to go. Let's go, Nevada City.
2 laps to go, and it is Lance Armstrong zipping up his flight suit, getting ready to race against Chris Huber of Coors Light, who is still out in front.
Don't pay any attention to that third rider. That's Jeff Pierce. He's been lapped. This race is between those two. And there's the field, really just 12 or 13 seconds behind. You can see Coors Light and Subaru Montgomery at the front. They're poised just in case one of the others at the front falters.
Lance Armstrong would love to have some support from back there.
Armstrong's been in the lead for more than an hour. Huber for less than a half hour. And it's going to come down to a sprint. Huber perhaps has the fresher legs.
Huber also more experienced, 11 years older than Armstrong. His team director says if he gets out in front with 2 laps to go, there isn't anyone who can catch him.
Coors Light has to be absolutely delighted with the situation because Huber is so tough near the end of a race.
Huber, a former velodrome star, 1.14 miles. 1 lap to go. And Armstrong looking back for help.
Armstrong's only chance right now is to drop Huber on the climb on the last lap. Otherwise, Huber will be just simply too fast.
The climb begins, and Armstrong doesn't appear that he has the stuff, the legs left to drop Chris Huber.
Armstrong's not thinking ahead.
Here comes the field. Several Subaru Montgomery riders at the front. Andrei Marashevsky trying to bridge.
And you can see Marashevsky exploding into that first turn. He's going after our 2 leaders where Huber is still in control.
Huber looking very comfortable in the front. Measures the drama that's unfolding behind him. Lance Armstrong.
Come on, man. Do it, man.
Cheers from the crowd. Will that be enough? He makes a move to the front. Huber pulls in behind. Huber's got this one measured carefully, though. Huber starts his sprint. He's looked back. He sees that Marashevsky is coming up. There's Marashevsky trying to help Armstrong, but he is too far behind. It's one-on-one with Huber on the left, Armstrong on the right. Huber takes it. The pursuer pulls out his speed and stops the young man's charge.
And Eddie B almost pulled one out for Subaru Montgomery, sending Marashevsky near the end. But it was Huber, just too fast, too strong. Coors Light for the victory.
Chris Huber, with his own Gold Rush, takes the first stop in the Subaru Cycling Classic, winning by a wheel after more than 45 miles of racing and 16,000 feet of climbing. Huber number 1, Armstrong in second, Marashevsky with a late charge to take third. The Subaru Montgomery team was 6 in the top 9. Now, let's go to our winner at the finish line.
I was content to let it come down to a sprint with Lance because, in most cases I can beat him in a sprint unless I was just dead. And it got sketchy because his teammate Andrzej started coming up on us, and that would have put me 2-1. And Andrzej was probably working with a group for most of the race, where it was just Lance and I basically out there. We might have been more tired. And at the top of the hill, it kind of just forced me to take matters into my own hands and lead the sprint out a little bit sooner than I would like to. But it's fast, and I got the bike in the 12, and started going on. I was pretty confident I could wind it up and hold those guys off, and I did. So real happy.
Chris Huber takes Nevada City. When we come back, they meet